Welcome to the Navigating Disruption podcast. I'm your host, Shaquille Barmel. I'm the CEO of Ocean Blue Strategic and partner with the Summit Group. I'm a coach, consultant, and speaker, and I help leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals make an impact through improved performance. In this podcast, I share insights and interviews with interesting leaders to define practical lessons that you can use to make an impact in the face of uncertainty. I was introduced to Randy Buchamer in 1993 when he came from headquarters to visit the sales office where I was working. I still remember his words of welcome to the company and his invitation to come see him once I settled into my new job. I had just graduated from university and was in my early 20s. Randy was the vice president of corporate services at Mohawk Oil, and I was a bottom rung sales coordinator in the lubricants division. But his invitation was sincere, and after a few weeks, I did go to see him. And in that meeting, I received the words of advice that set me on a path that is paying off for me until this day. Enjoy the conversation. Hey, Randy, how are you?
I'm awesome. And you?
Very well, thank you. And thanks for making the time to chat today. This means a lot to me. I had a chance to talk to a number of leaders that I've come across in my career. And so the chance to do this is fantastic, not only to be able to say a few words and thank you for some of the influences you've had on me, but also catch up with kind of what your experiences have been since we last worked together and pull out some lessons for the future for myself and others.
Great. Well, pleasure and great to see you again.
Awesome. Thank you. First of all, how's your family? Is everybody doing okay during this time?
Everyone's good. Yeah. I've got a couple grandkids now. And
wow.
Life is good. How about you?
Wow. Yeah. Well, I got two teenage boys that are home. One is in university, actually not teenage anymore. He's now 20. So he's in university third year. And my second one is in grade 11. So
excellent.
So it's been good and enjoying having them around during this time.
Yeah, for sure. It's precious times. They grow quick.
I can see that, and you're experiencing that. But the payoff at the end is the grandkids, it seems like.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Randy, I don't know if I ever told you this, but one of the things that was really impactful for me early in my career, I remember I was probably a week into the job at Mohawk. I was a sales coordinator working in lubricants. You were the vice president of corporate services. And so I was in like a tertiary business to the core business, which was our retail business. So I was in a tertiary business and I was several levels below you. There was no direct line of reporting between my boss and yourself. But when I was introduced to you in the hallway in my first couple weeks, you kind of said, when you get settled, come in and see me and we'll have a chat. So that blew me away, first of all. And I was eager at the time, so I made sure I'd made a note and took advantage of that opportunity. But when I came in to see you, one piece of advice that you gave me has stuck with me throughout my career. And that piece of advice was be a sponge. Watch everything, listen to everything, both good practices, bad practices, just take it all in. Yeah. And that really resonated with me in the moment, made a lot of sense. But I've really tried to live my career and life that way by watching everything. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. Great. Yeah. I'm glad you did it.
Yeah. But I want to ask a little bit, if you don't mind delving in a little bit, what was it that drove you, for example, to make the effort to make time for me? I mean, I was just a new kid on the block, fresh out of school. What made you take the time to spend with me?
Well, it's probably that to start with. I mean, I think you try to make other teammates on the team comfortable. Came across with a lot of pedigree, with your dad being in the business, working in the station. So obviously you had a lot of knowledge, but you weren't directly in the retail side at that point in time. You had a lot of experiences, and I think there's a lot of things. And being a sponge, I wanted to talk to you, firstly, understand and meet you, to understand a little bit more about your experiences and things you learned and what you would see that would be different now that you're in the company, and also to make a connection. I think that I was attracted to a lot of those young people that came in that wanted to drive change, that wanted to make things better than it was, and do that alone. So having that type of talent around, you have to talk to it.
So part of the motivation, well, thank you for those kind words, but so part of the motivation was recognizing the change that the company needed to make and making sure you surrounded yourself with people that were forward thinking.
Yeah, and I was brought in by the CFO, who became the CEO, as a change agent. You're going to piss a lot of people off because you're going to challenge the status quo. My inherent core competency. That was Bill Duncan, our CEO.
Right.
I need you to do that. And he asked me for a plan, and I said, you can do it two ways. I said, I've seen people who come in from the outside to Mohawk and challenge things in a way that was putting people down or seen as offensive or divisive. Yeah. And I said, this company needs to have a common vision and a goal and some leadership to bring people together to a common goal and not be divisive. And I said, rather than attack, do it in a way where we discover and we learn. So it was a very, very good time for me too. I learned a lot during that process because I had a leader that let me loose to work with some great talent. And some of the people, you know, in that organization, how they were valued at that point in time in their careers versus where they went. I saw some wonderful talent. They've all gone on to be super talented people with great careers. How do you not tap into that? It'd be crazy.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Well, you did bring out a lot of energy in us. I do remember that kind of group of 20, 30 somethings, of which I was like really on the low end, just tagging along, wanting to be part of the group. That you really did inspire us and taught us a lot. In fact, I remember around that time, I don't think the organization had a formal strategy or ever went through a formal strategic planning process. And we had just come out of a major crisis where we restructured the company and we're on a path for the future. And you were, I guess, were asked to take on a strategic planning exercise.
Yeah, there's a lot of good work done. I mean, the organization at that time was an emulator. It was a discounter within an industry where the margins were getting depressed, as you know.
Yeah.
So one had to be inventive and creative to say, how do we make a difference? How do we position ourselves in a way that we stand out? Right. And we can the value proposition in a way that it's valued in the consumer's eyes. So, I mean, at that point in time, there was a fellow named Pat Parker who had a short career with Mohawk, but was a really bright guy. Mm-hmm. We were talking to him at night and different things. And what we talked about was, at first, Mohawk had all this environmental products and internal positioning that they didn't promote because it wasn't seen as valued in the industry. Mm-hmm. Be brave and have the courage to stand on that and say, here's who we are, here's how we're different. And I think Pat really understood that. And then, of course, with some of the talent that he had in his marketing group and worked with Frank Palmer, to say a different way. And that's really where it started, was people talking about what we could be versus what we were.
Yeah, very cool. I don't know if you will remember this book, but you gave me that book probably 1994, 95. And I still have it still on my bookshelf. But that was, and for my listeners who can't see it, the book is called Strategy, Pure and Simple, How Winning CEOs Outthink Their Competition by Michelle Robert. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but that became a bit of a handbook, right?
Yes, it did.
Which made it seem like what you were trying to do was not this mysterious, magical process. You were following a structured approach, which is really instructional for a lot of us to be able to follow along the journey.
Yeah. And I think for some of the people that have been in the company a long time, especially in senior management, there was a little bit of fear of the younger people being better educated. So one of the things I tried to do was adopt an external methodology. So it wasn't mine or theirs or ours. It was all of ours and something we could use. And the book really helped us do two things, I think. One is for us to realize we were a product-driven company, since you brought the book out. And a product-driven company is built around a core offering. And best product, best positioning wins.
Yeah.
The second is your sales and your communications and marketing message is the second key driver.
Right.
Those things transformed the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really did. It was really amazing to watch that happen in that period of time. And of course, go ahead.
Well, I would say we were all lucky because we were all learning. Yeah. You're positioning it a bit as I had the inspiration from a lot of you young people that say, this is great, this is cool, let's keep going. I mean, it's like being on a sports team. You can't be the individual player. Everyone kind of goes, well, he scores the goals, let him go.
Yeah.
But I think it was really, really good for me to see the fire within. And I think we use that term a lot, was we create that fire within and let it burn in the company and grow.
Yeah.
And it's still the most substantial opportunity I've had to see that happen from ground floor and just catch on fire and transform a company and create leaders that are 25, 30 years down the road are leading organizations still.
Yeah. I mean, that 4 or 5 years, is still the time where I've learned the most. I mean, I remember having come from the lubricants division, moving to the strategic planning group under your leadership, and you managed to secure a project for myself and my boss, Carm DeLuca, to look at the strategy for the lubricants division, because there was a lot of conflict there between manufacturing and sales. So I remember, again, using this book and this process, and that moment when I realized that the fundamental flaw in the design is that the manufacturing, their ideal state was sell all their product directly from factory out, and they had the manufacturing.
Yeah.
Our sales group wanted to sell value-added products, and they wanted to make money that way. The two were completely in conflict of each other.
Absolutely.
And as soon as we understood that insight, which was an underlying, the underlying incentive, we were able to start moving forward and solving the problem. Big lesson I learned about aligning interests between divisions.
Really and I remember that when you worked with Carm. Carm, great guy.
Yeah.
You challenge the status quo. I mean, the goal was to say, don't come back and tell us we're doing things great.
Yeah.
Challenge everything and come back and tell us how we can be awesome.
Yeah.
And that's another piece of the organization that had fundamental change that really drew a lot of interest, a lot of energy, and helped the overall brand of Mother Nature's.
That's right. Yeah. But what it showed to me was the importance of leadership alignment between all the people at the table, the senior management team. And it also taught me that you can't take it for granted. Like it takes a lot of work to align leaders around the table. Have you seen that elsewhere? Because I know you've gone on to do some very interesting things following Mohawk. Is that a theme that you've seen come up?
I think that as long as everyone is willing to put the egos aside,
right?
I think you have to be someone that says, "Do I have to be the guy that comes up with the answer, or do I be part of a team that gets it?" Yeah. And I think it's more exciting. I mean, I think it goes back to life. Some people, come out of school and they want to sell real estate by themselves. Don't want to be with anybody else. I want to be on my own. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how you're wired. Yeah. But if you really like the team aspect in that, there's nothing more exciting than seeing that grow and develop. And we all experience that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really good. I do remember at one point when I was, you brought in some management consultants. You brought in A.T. Kearney to help us with a number of projects, which was kind of a breakthrough move for a company of our size. I was able to be in charge of one small work stream and got a chance to work with the consultants. And then it kind of the bug bit me. And I thought, oh man, this is what I want to do. Yeah. And, after some exploration, I realized to do that, I'd have to go get my MBA. And I remember this, I was really stuck on this path of this choice. Do I continue in my career here and without the MBA? And you were the role model for that because you were very successful in your career without having gone and done an MBA. Or do I pull out from this and go and do an MBA? It was a tough decision. And you were very good at not telling me what to do, but I definitely picked up the signal that you were hoping or suggesting that I might stay with it and not leave and drop out and come back later. Any thoughts and reflection around that time? Or maybe I'm making it up. Maybe you didn't have a view.
Yeah, no, I think that you got to get a taste of the meal.
Yeah.
And school's great. I went back actually, Des, if you did an executive in 96. So
you did. Okay.
And I did that to learn something.
Yeah.
Going to prove or go to school to kind of say, I'm good enough.
Right.
I'd rather be the person that says, I've done it and I can do more. Yeah. And I think you were a good example of that. Carm went back and did his. But back to the A.T. Kearney and some of the work streams, you had an MBA. They call it the cohort business model, as you call it in school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we use the cohort business model at Mohawk.
That's true.
Bring in Carney and people like that. We're bringing in particular expertise that wasn't a core competency of the leadership team or the company to augment our existing skill set and skill set pass it on. So what I didn't want to do at that point was I didn't want consultants to come in and do it to us and leave.
Yeah.
Really important. We had young people like you that got involved, drove the process with the talent from A.T. Carney, and we became experts in those disciplines. And that's what really helped the company. So I think you got an MBA before you officially got a piece of paper.
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually, I was probably a bit of a nuisance to my classmates in my MBA class because every case that came up, I had a perspective, whether it be a major construction of a new plant or entering a new market or transforming a retail experience. I had perspectives from my time at Mohawk. And I'm sure that, my classmates got sick of me. Oh, he's has something to say again. But I actually had a perspective from the work that we did together in that 4 years. And I actually ended up going to work for A.T. Carney then after my MBA.
Yes, I remember.
I went to another consulting firm after that. But really remarkable experiences. And I just interviewed Cause.
Because excellent guy.
I worked with him as well and got some great stories. The common thread I'm seeing from the people that I'm interviewing that were influential in my past, there's a deep sense of humility amongst all the leaders that I deeply respect. And I don't know, people are not very good at calling themselves humble, but just a commentary from you on the importance of humility as part of leadership character in your career, your experience, the people you've worked for.
The word humility can mean different things. I think as long as you are trying to find the truth, for starters.
Yeah.
It doesn't become a personal issue. It becomes, let's discover something together.
Right.
So that might be humility, but it's also having the courage, I think, to be comfortable enough to be wrong as a leader.
Right.
The thing I learned very quickly is when I came in to Mohawk, leaders are supposed to have all the answers. Yeah. And I remember going home thinking, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
I had the ability to discover and work with teams, and there was a lot of people smarter than me, guys like you, Carn DeLuca, Cause Laporta, etc.
Yeah.
But if you could energize that group to discover together, then humility wasn't really an issue because the egos were left behind.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, to me, playing sports, it's just who's first line, who's second line. Who cares? We won the game.
Right.
That's where you get. So I think it's also ego driven. If you're comfortable and secure and want to get better and you want to learn, you're going to do it. And you'll attract people of that mindset and repel people that want to stand out and be recognized as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So we had a great journey. Of course, our organization was, depends what you call it, merged, acquired. What did you go on to do after that?
Actually, what I did was my father had done construction jobs all his life.
Yeah.
And I'd always wanted to renovate a house and be my own general contractor.
Okay.
So I took 5 months.
Yeah.
And I bought a house, my wife and I, Leslie, and renovated.
Okay.
I remember coming home at 11 at night. I lost weight and I was always dirty. And she'd say, "What are we doing today?" And I was jackhammering the showers for the plumber in there.
Wow.
Why not? And I said, because it's really satisfying to use my hands and do all those things my dad did, not to earn a wage, but to create something.
Yeah.
And I had great experiences. And then I was sitting around and I got a call, funny enough, from my son came up and said, "Oh, Dad, Jim Patterson's on the phone." And I went, "Yeah, right." So, big sports guy. A lot of the guys would joke around with names and stuff.
Yeah.
I knew who it was.
Yeah.
So it was Jim. And he just said, "I saw your picture in the paper. Mohawk got bought out. Heard a lot of good things about you. Why don't we have lunch and get together?"
Wow.
So we got together and had a really good meeting. And then we flew down next week to Palm Springs where he was having some meetings, just asked me to observe. And I came back, I thought, great, because I could be an internal consultant for an organization with 52 divisions.
Right.
And take the next step. And I think also for me, it was a little bit to test, was the Mohawk experience a fluke or can I go and play at the next level? So it was a good test for me. So that's the next thing I did.
What's the biggest thing you learned about yourself in that transition from Mohawk being, at the time, I thought it was a big company because it was, for me, big. realizing it actually in retrospect, it was actually a relatively small company. But what was the big insight that you got about yourself making that big leap?
I think, Jim was an example of a very strong, comfortable leader.
Mm-hmm.
And but he was very involved in the company.
Mm-hmm.
He also gave a lot of autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And, Mohawk had 3 or 4 divisions as part of the overall group. There was 52 companies, which were 36 or 37 were operating companies.
Yeah.
So I became managing director of operations. My job was just to look at things and make things better, and got involved in all kinds of things. But I also learned a really good lesson is, if I can compare it to sports, I always did, so I won't change my way of explaining things.
Yeah.
I became the GM watching the team on the ice.
Right.
And I realized that wasn't me. It was really a fundamental career in my life because I was managing director of operations of this $5.5 billion a year company.
Yeah.
I was flying around with Jim Pattison, different people to do deals and everything. And to the social mirror, you had arrived. You were the guy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy after a while, after a year and a half, because you weren't allowed to get involved in the divisions. My nature was, I wanted to get involved.
Right.
So one quick story to put in perspective is we had a Christmas lunch for all the divisions.
Yeah.
2 people were cutting turkey and they couldn't keep up. So I put a smock on out of the kitchen, came out, and I started cutting turkey.
Yeah.
And I got called in the next day. And of course it was, well, what were you doing? I said, well, they couldn't keep up. They needed help. I'm on the team.
Yeah.
And said to me, you're one of my key guys, and the key guys shouldn't be doing those kind of things.
Interesting.
Events like that where I realized, no, I need to be in the business. I can't be up watching the game. I need to be closer to it.
Yeah.
So then I decided to do what we just talked about, was be a resource, a mentor, a consultant, leader to entrepreneurs, but do it on my own.
Yeah.
And really where that fundamental change coming, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, that seems so typical of you, because I walked away from Mohawk with that really core belief to get hands-on. And I remember I was running a logistics and supply chain business, and I got a call that the labels that we put on the boxes for this big shipment for Canadian Tire got mixed up, and the stores will not receive these things. So I jumped in my SUV with new labels, drove up to Kelowna, and we switched the boxes out and drove back, and that was it. But again, that lesson was learned during that time of pumping gas, getting your hands dirty, being willing to do all those things. So I can totally understand that when you speak that way. And oh, that's very interesting. So you referred to it a couple of times, your background in sports. I know that you were a competitive hockey player growing up. Any carry forward lessons you took from that time as a young hockey player that have transferred to your leadership?
Well, I think for sure. I always talk to people about sports and business. I think it's so similar.
Yeah.
What is your strategy as a team? Are you going to be offensive, be defensive? It's the same as a business. You come up with a cohesive plan about who you're going to be. What's your identity?
Right.
And then you take that into the individual roles. So everyone has a common vision of what the team is. But you have to build a trust. So in other words, the example I always used is, if the left winger in hockey is in the right corner trying to get the puck, the message is, I'm not playing the team game and I'm not trusting the right winger to get it.
Right.
Sports trust is built. You earn that over time. I think business does that. I think you also learn to have a common good or a bigger piece, which is the team, than you. And maybe that humility, that humbleness, sports teaches you that there's always someone better.
Yeah.
But not always the best goal scorers. And as you move up, you see the better players get neutralized by someone that's not as good.
Yeah.
But a team system.
Yeah.
The system in teams becomes the operational aspects of a company.
Yeah.
So I do it all the time, and I know people always joke, but here comes another sports analyst.
Yeah.
I think it's so similar. And who's in charge? You've got to have a coach, but the coach is in charge of the overall team strategy, etc. But everyone's part of it.
Yeah.
And how a coach can get everyone to, again, create that fire within and buy into the team. And we've seen it so many times where the top teams lose in the playoffs to a team that just has more drive and has a better team motive. And I think it's so cool. So
Yeah.
sports absolutely was a huge piece for me to understand that,
Yeah.
to appreciate the value of a team and teamwork.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I wasn't an athlete. I never grew up as an athlete. I played soccer when I was young, but even I find drawing to sports analogies is really powerful. My favorite one that I use these days is talking about Bobby Orr and how he was known to have the ability to be in the ice playing the game, but this magical ability to step into the stands at the same time, watching himself play and watching the field of play. And I think it's a great analogy for leaders right now who have to have that ability to self-reflect and learn in the moment, change direction, change actions based on what they're seeing happen and looking at themselves. Another great sports analogy that means a lot.
Absolutely, and the other thing is sports is it's always changing.
Mm-hmm.
It's fluid. That you can't go in saying we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Go in saying we're going to start doing this, but we'll modify as required.
Right.
I think business too, you can get hardwired where this is who we are. You don't change.
Yeah.
That's part of change management. If something isn't working, don't work harder.
Yeah.
Do something different. Look at it a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Randy, as we come to a close here, I'm just want to. You are still involved in a number of companies, helping companies operate now. What is your advice to leaders in those companies and more broadly in navigating the next several years of uncertainty?
I think for leaders, it's have the courage to find the truth, and if it isn't yours, and even if you have nothing to do with it, almost, have the courage to encourage your team to find the truth. Get that true north in the company, so that everyone's understanding where you're going, how you're going, and create that fire. Turn them loose. Turn them loose to make it theirs.
Yeah.
And I almost at different times call leadership roles the release role. You discover, but you release the hounds.
Yeah.
And you let them go and discover things on their own, decide how to change things. You're giving that power of the old management style away.
Yeah.
Releasing it and giving it to everyone in their roles to make a difference. So I say the courage to let your team do the right thing, discover the right thing, and the way lead by not being in front. Sometimes it's better to be in the back of the bus and let them drive it.
Right. And in fact, the courage to admit that you don't actually have all the answers and you can use the team's help to give you the answers.
I agree. Absolutely.
That's a great way to wrap this. Again, Randy, thank you very much for the impact you've made on me. And I know several dozen other people, I'm sure, in your career. I just want you to know that it's meant a lot and it continues on. And I passed it on to other people from you. So thank you very much.
That's the best legacy what Covey always used to say, to live, to love, to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
To hear that some skill set transfer can go on and leave a legacy is wonderful. It's great.
Absolutely.
Appreciate with all the things you're doing too.
Okay, thank you. And I wish you all the best with your family. Enjoy those grandchildren and stay safe and healthy.
You too. Enjoy your family and in these crazy times, we'll get there, but be safe until we're there.
Yeah, excellent. Take care. So I felt like I was 22 again, learning lessons from a mentor. Let me share what I took away from this conversation. The first I'll start with is the one that I took away when I was 22 was that be a sponge, observe everything good and bad. Read as much as you can. Take it all in. Seek perspectives from everyone, young and old, people from different walks of life and functions. Next, surround yourself with people that have a fire within. And as a leader, stoke that fire. Draw from that energy and work with the team to discover. If you're a change agent, you don't come in and attack past practices to drive change. Instead, you encourage a spirit of discovery and learning and work with people to actually drive the change. I liked how we talked about admitting that you don't know the answer and seeking the advice of the people around you to help you find the answer. I thought the story he told about
how he found his calling after he left Mohawk was really interesting. He talked about how he wanted this hands-on work inspired by his dad. He wanted to work on building a house. And then when he got a call to go and work for one of the greatest business icons in Canada, Jimmy Pattison, he realized that he didn't actually enjoy having this GM kind of looking from the top approach to leadership. He wanted to be hands-on. So he left and started advising smaller entrepreneurs and working with smaller businesses much more directly. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think it's great to be able to connect with Randy again after so many years and still learn from him. Very grateful for that conversation. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, or share it. I want to say thank you to one of my favorite bands, Late Night Conversations, for sharing their song Chaos with me and letting me use it in this episode. You can learn more about them on Instagram at LNC Connected. And here's more of their song Chaos to take you out.
Far behind my eyes, mediation, suffocation, it'll break me. Information in disguise. But when your eyes finally found mine, you were there, but I'm defined by the chaos in my mind. I believe what I perceive is a weave tearing at the seams, and I wonder what's behind. And my ears are bleeding, and the reason easing the logic of the season, taking the pleasing from my soul and leaving me to die. And I feel the lacing, LNC like racing, unstationary animation taking me from the purpose.